Well, hello and welcome to the J. Sterling Hughes Show, where we share the secrets and the strategies of how we are building a rapidly growing law practice. Over the past 9 years, we have grown from 0 attorneys to 25 and doing over 15 million in revenue. And my purpose here is to document what's working and what's not working in our practice, with hopes that you can take that and you can recontextualize that and shorten your success curve. My name is Jeff Hughes and I'm your host. And today I have a really special guest that I'm so excited to hear from myself selfishly, but also to share with you what he has done over his career. So I have Corey Quinn with me today, and you're going to learn a lot about how to position your firm, how to break free from the founder-led sales process that most of us start with, and how to go to market and grab the attention of that perfect client that you're looking for. And Corey's the right person to tell us all about this. So let me tell you real quick on his past. Now, I always put a special emphasis, Corey, on those who have actually been there and done that. You're not academic. So at 24, you raised $3 million for your first business. 2011, you had your first B2B subscription business. You were the CMO at Scorpion, which was, I believe, the largest lawyer-focused marketing agency in the country, and were there when it went from 20 million to 150 million. You shepherded the CMO responsibilities around that. You have a podcast that I'll confess, I am fanboying and been binging out on the last couple of days, and not only in preparation for this, awesome. But you got some really good guests there that I've gotten a ton of value. There's one guest you had recently that was from near my hometown, Chris. That was good. I reached out to him. And you have a book coming out in the very near future in a couple months, I believe. Anyone, not everyone. And you have an excellent newsletter. So I'll stop gushing about you. Tell us about you and by the way, and just in full disclosure, I first became aware of you, Corey, because you put together we did a consulting package in my sister company, Rocket Clicks, and you did some great work there. I was super impressed by that. And I asked my partner there, hey, you think Corey would mind coming on my show? So that's what led to you and I connecting today. So tell us about you and your business.
Sure. Oh gosh, Jeff, that is so wild to hear all of those big milestones in one intro. So thank you for all that. It's really fun. So I think you covered a lot of the highlights. I've been sort of on the entrepreneurial side. I've been an employee at a fast-growing agency, an executive. I've enjoyed doing that for many years. In fact, I spent about 15 years in the agency world. Previous to that, I was sort of on Wall Street as a financial advisor and then an entrepreneur before that. And really what I'm excited about these days is a big part of my focus for my career is to take a lot of those experiences I've built up in the knowledge and the wisdom, if you will, that I've built up over the last 25 years, and now really working with a specific audience, a very specific audience, which is, I was going to say attorneys, but that was at Scorpion. We worked with attorneys, but I work with agency owners specifically to help them to really scale the business, leveraging some best practices that we learned at Scorpion, as well as just general best practices for sales and marketing I've picked up over the years. And that I love doing that. The topic, if you were to sort of summarize the focus of my work, it's around helping people to do more by doing less, by being more specific about working on the things that really move the needle and doing less of the things that don't really make an impact.
Yeah, and I was playing around on your site, obviously, in prep for this, and you talk a lot in there and in your newsletter about a go-to-market strategy. And maybe if we can talk a little bit about these big, broad marketing topics that you have really refined and honed over the years. And then I'd love for you to zero in and kind of apply that to lawyers, where in my world, because I know you help hundreds and thousands of lawyers do that. So when it comes to a go-to-market strategy, what does that actually mean? And how do you develop that for a firm, for example?
Sure. That go-to-market is like slang, and the marketer inside me is like, I don't like using slang or insider words, but it's intentional because it's aimed at a specific audience. But to sort of decipher what that term go-to-market or go-to-market strategy is today there's more choices than ever to market your law firm. There's a lot of places online you could spend money very, very quickly and unfortunately lose money very quickly. I've done that. and not just advertising, but social media. There's a lot of things you could do that doesn't have anything to do with the internet, like local marketing and getting involved in associations and so on and so forth. So a go-to-market strategy is very simply the series of channels and actions that you take in order to maximize your ability to build your reputation, get more business, get more awareness. You can't do everything. So what is the strategy? What is the specific things that you're going to do out of all the options that are going to get you to the results you're looking for as it relates to sort of growth and marketing?
Yeah. So applying that to law firms.
That makes sense? That's still jargony.
That makes total sense. I think we have a little bit of latency here too. So if I'm talking over you, excuse me on that.
Yeah, I think so.
So applying that to lawyers, Corey,
Me too.
What are some best practices for lawyers to understand about that and how to develop a strategy for their firm?
Yeah, so I'm going to think a little bit on my toes here because I haven't worked directly with attorneys for a while. However, I would say that one of the best practices is when it comes to marketing your firm, where possible, and this comes from my work at Scorpion and elsewhere, is specialization is a great way for you to differentiate yourself in the market. And so what I mean by that is instead of trying to do all things for all people, let's say you're a criminal defense attorney or a family law attorney, and it's the process of identifying which sub niche or which subsection of your area of law practice do you want to specialize in, so that you could, as a result of the specialization, you could stand out more and be more recognizable, more easily findable. I think that's a pretty standard best practice. And I'd say when it comes to, once you've identified that specific niche within your practice area, I would say, number one, that you need to do a good job of getting your name out there. And I come from sort of a focus around the internet, and so I'll speak to that. Number one, developing content, which is not necessarily a core competency for an attorney necessarily, but developing content as it relates to the specifics of your specialty and your niche on an ongoing basis is a great way today to be able to establish yourself as that credible expert, but as well as be found by people who are in the market looking for your services. So an example of what that might look like is you might have a YouTube channel, or you may have an active profile on Facebook. Some attorneys are doing TikTok videos. What I would say is find the medium. If you're gonna do content, which I highly recommend, find a medium that you feel comfortable doing, that you're energized by doing. I'll give you an example for myself. I do these podcasts, and my producer is telling me, "Hey, Corey, you need to create these little short snippet promo clips for YouTube and for TikTok and all these things." I just hate doing them. These little short little videos. It's just not me. And I end up either like not doing them and then cramming them in at the last minute on a Friday, and I send them off, or I just don't even do it. And I've decided that I'm just not going to do those, because although it could be helpful, I don't really enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing this type of thing. I like having these interviews. And so I think the big key here is find a medium or a channel or a platform that you really like producing content on, that you feel energized by, as I mentioned, so that you could do it over the long run. The mistake many people make is that they think, I'll just start doing these videos or these blog posts or whatnot, these social media posts, and then within 3 months they've been distracted, or they're no longer committed. And unfortunately, it's like getting a dog or a pet or a fish. We just got a fish here at my family. You're going to stick around for a while. It's a big commitment to do these things, and ultimately you're going to get results in 12 to 18 to 24 months. So that's the content piece. I would say another big piece that attorneys would have seen benefit from, certainly, is doing things like very targeted paid advertising in a specific service area relative to where they want to work and where they want to pick up new cases. Doing very specific advertising do it internally or with a partner, that's a really powerful way to get your name out there and to get seen in what they call the moment of truth, meaning basically someone's looking for your services now. You want to make sure that you're findable in that moment. I would say the other aspect of marketing, which I think is hard, another thing that's hard to do, but you get benefit from it over the long run, which is search engine optimization, which is the idea that you're not only building your authority with the local audience through this content you're doing, but you're also doing it, you're also building authority with Google. And over time, you do that through content, you do it through reviews and ratings, like all those things matter. It's very common knowledge these days. But the beauty of that happens in month 18 to 24. You don't see it in the early days, which makes it hard to stick to. But those businesses that are able to continually invest in their SEO and their social media will begin to see a small return over a short period of time, but then a big return where the result is you don't have to depend as much on paid media, expensive ads online to be able to generate new cases.
Yeah. And do you see when a firm will do that, will stick with SEO over the long haul? And I know that that's what, quote, free traffic, right? You're not paying for the actual click like you weren't paid. But do you see an overall lift at all for their paid? Does that drive their paid costs down a little bit? Because do you see any correlation or connection between those two?
Not necessarily, but so let's imagine someone types in family law attorney Milwaukee as an example. And let's say that you're number one in the paid result, you're number one in the map, and you're also number one in the organic. What you're doing effectively is you're pushing out your competition.
Yeah.
Because you're holding up 3 of those key locations that otherwise your competition would have.
Right.
And so, and that's why it's great to be able to do all those 3 things. It's easy to do the paid, or it's relatively easy to do the paid. Getting into the map listings, especially for a competitive term like family law or a divorce attorney, whatnot, in a massive geo like Milwaukee, that's hard to do. But if you're able to get there, you can what they call conquest. You can basically own the page as it relates to all the valuable real estate when someone does that search.
You were talking earlier about being really niched out and using that as a primary strategy to grow your practice. And obviously we see a lot of firms who do that really well. And I see a lot of them that just have a hard time breaking away from being a generalist and staying broad. And obviously there are trade-offs to make between niching out and then staying broad. Why do you feel there's been so many attorneys struggle with trusting that idea of niching down versus staying broader?
What I think is interesting is about that topic is that in many cases, the data supports the argument to niche down. And in the case of attorneys, let's say you're in a specific market where you could do research and look and see and understand how many available cases are there, in a given month, in a given year, for a specific type of niche. And in many cases, it's competitive, but there are a lot of cases for the typical types of, family law attorney or practice. And so theoretically, if you are successful as a family law attorney in a specific service area, you're going to get the lion's share or a lot of those cases that are available. And so it's not necessarily, in other words, it's not the data that is holding them back. I think it is a sort of a psychological bias called loss aversion, where there's a sense where, hey, if I start to say no to, criminal defense, DUI cases, or whatever these other cases that they end up taking in it, so that I can create room in my practice for these other kind of cases I want to specialize in, I'm going to basically be losing money, and it's going to be a bad bet for me, and I'm ultimately going to regret it, and then be behind where I would be today. And I think one of the ways to soften that is to get into a good cash position for the business, where you're able to, let's say, focus on developing the new or the niche that, let's say, within the local area, whether that be through advertisements, or potentially maybe bringing on an attorney, a local attorney who already has some of that reputation in that niche that could help to kind of short circuit, call it, the timeline it takes in order to start seeing some serious material results from that focus.
Yeah, you're talking about having the cash position that brought up for me. As you've seen all of these different firms, that some have done the niching well and some have stayed more broad. Did you have visibility into their margins? Are niched out firms or practices on the whole, do they have better margins than those who don't? What have you seen there?
I'll ask the same, but can I ask you that very question? I mean, as a family law attorney, we're running a 25-person law firm. Was it primarily, if you don't mind me asking, were you once a generalist,
yes,
or have you guys always been focusing in on?
No, one of the things that was our greatest strength, and it turned out to be almost what killed us, was our ability to get attention online. And so I had the idea when we started 9 years ago, it was like, look, if we can get someone's attention and get them as a client, we just should get everybody. Everyone should apply, right? And so we were really quick with all things to all people. It's just right. It's logical. We grew to 8 attorneys in the first 18 months, and we're just a disaster. It was poor service, terrible. And then when we pivoted 18 months into doing just family law, and then there are just divorce and paternities and post judgments, that's when our whole complexion of our firm changed. So yes, I can certainly vouch for the fact that there's much more margin in a firm that's niched out versus one that isn't. I just know you've seen hundreds of them. Didn't know if you could reinforce my one, my one case study.
N of one. Yeah, absolutely. So so the benefit of niching down and serving a specific audience consistently over a long period of time is you begin to obviously see patterns in what they need, and you're able to sort of operationalize and let's call it productize how you provide that service. So you're not kind of figuring it out every single time someone comes in your door. You actually have a proven system and a process and people and software all trained up to really be super efficient and be really good. Like when you're able to practice and do things over and over, you get the benefit of knowing exactly what to do and continually improving. That will, of course, improve your margins. It will also improve things like reviews and the results you get, because you become a true expert in this area. And it becomes kind of like a flywheel that really feeds on itself. I think the challenging part to your earlier comment is just that it's hard to know when to do that, if to do that, and exactly how to get there.
Yeah, I think like most people, I struggle in the very first weeks of that, of just seeing all those potential clients just go out the door and not capture that value that I felt like we were generating. So that emotionally was hard to work through, but it certainly was worth it, sticking with it over the long term.
Yeah. At what point did you realize it was worth it? I'm curious.
So we actually turned on our marketing on February 1st of 15 to do focus just on family law. And we went from 8 attorneys down to 4 to do that. So we let half our staff, half our lawyers go, and half our clients go with them, because we weren't going to do those cases anymore. So we did a really hard pivot, and we were just rip the Band-Aid off type mentality. And by the end of that year, so that started February 1st, by the end of that year, we had grown back to the original size, and everything about the firm was easier and more productive than before. Our marketing was sharper. Our attorneys were in their strength zone, not asked to do everything. Said that our hiring was better. Everything across the entire firm was better once we really focused. And the difficulty was saying no in those first few weeks. But after we worked through that, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
We've stuck with that since then. You're an expert in the area of helping businesses break free from that founder-led sales. And that's endemic in the law space, where these lawyers start up, they bring all the cases in. Moving out of that is tough, though. How does a firm or a business that you work with break free from being so reliant on that initial inspirational force that has started the firm, generates most of the business? How do they move beyond that in order to scale?
Well, the area that I have seen great success as it relates to that, it comes through the process of becoming that specialist or that expert, where you may, to your point, have an attorney who's the rainmaker. Maybe it's the lead attorney, the founder of the law firm, and they may be charismatic. They may be very outgoing, have a great network, know a lot of people, and just be really great at generating cases. The challenge many times is that they end up generating a lot of different type of cases, and it doesn't necessarily align with any one vertical, but just as a nature of their networking ability, they generate a lot of business, which in turn creates this challenge that many law firms have, which is number one, they are generalists. Number two, they're founder led, which means that if the founder ever wanted to retire, then what is, the law firm that they're retiring from is not in a great position to continue moving forward in the same way, because there's not, obviously, if the founder's not there, then they can't depend on that new revenue coming in. And so the one way to get into a better position is to become that vertical market specialist, that niche specialist, I should say, and begin to build your reputation as a expert in that area of practice, so that it's not the lead attorney who necessarily is the rainmaker or the reason why people hire the law firm. It is their expertise and the proof and the evidence of their expertise as a result of doing it for a number of years. That's what drives the business. That's what attracts people. It helps them to be found. They have a brand name and a reputation, and it is a very good substitute for that founder-led law firm.
Mm-hmm. In the course of doing that, as you've worked with these law firms, and let me just formulate the question I want to ask. The two types of generally of marketing and attention getting is direct response, right? Reaching out and getting a direct response, or at least really getting someone when they're ready to buy, versus more brand style marketing where you're raising awareness. And one of the biggest weaknesses in our practice is that we're still, after all these years, very reliant on our direct response marketing. We haven't really invested very much at all in just general name branding. And we're moving in that direction pretty aggressively right now to do that. And my question is, as you've coached and worked with attorneys that have started, to get started, you don't have a brand, you don't have money to spend on something that's slow play, right? When do you start transitioning firms into more branding, and what are the times when you start that transition process, and what does a real healthy firm, fully scaled, look like in terms of their spend? I asked you a million questions here. This is not a good interview question, but I'm thinking as I go through, what's the good formula?
I'm good.
What's the good formula to have the right ratio between direct response and brand marketing?
I think it's a great question. And my perspective is creating a great customer or client experience is branding. It starts at that level, because ultimately word of mouth is a very, very powerful vehicle that's really driven through the people who have had an experience with you. Obviously, as a law firm owner and as an attorney, you want to create great outcomes. You want to have a great experience. So it really starts there. That's where the brand experience starts. Even when someone, picks up calls in and they speak to, a receptionist or someone who does the intake. All of that is sort of brand experience. But as it relates to acquiring new customers, my approach is always, if you think of like the sales funnel or the marketing funnel, the buyer's funnel, it's all the same thing, where at the bottom of the funnel is when someone is ready to hire an attorney. They're going through a divorce and they've just begun that process and they want to find representation. That's the bottom of the funnel. You want to cover that and then work your way up the funnel. Up the funnel means closer to brand. Top of the funnel is the brand work. So it's not a substitute in my mind where you start doing brand work and you stop doing direct response. Direct response is always going to be there. It's just that once you've been able to build systems and build out the law practice in such a way that you're maximizing direct response, whether that's digital or direct mail or commercials and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different channels. But once you've kind of systematized that and you really got that dialed in, you got good results from that, that's when you could start to look at things like, how do we begin to build our profile within the community outside of people who are actively looking for our services. That's the right time. I think overall, from a budgetary perspective, aggressive law firms will spend 15 to 20% of their gross revenue on marketing. Those are the ones that are actively growing. They're really doubling down. They're putting a ton of money into their marketing and their growth. We want to grow on an average rate, we'll spend about 10%. And then people who don't want to grow or are not going to be as competitive will spend less than 10% of their gross annual income to the law firm back into marketing.
Wow, you nailed that, because that's right where our firm sits, right at 16% actually on what we spend on marketing.
Bingo.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say, Corey, is that you're seeing the brand spend to be more of not a shifting of dollars away from a direct response style, lower bottom of the funnel type spend, but more of just as you get the systems and processes in place, your intake team is there, you've got a good sales process, you just start adding dollars toward the top of the funnel and a brand awareness sort of campaigns. Interesting.
Yeah, that is, in my perspective, the right way to do it, because brand marketing is good, but it depends on your consumer, on your client base. But at the end of the day, what matters is who do they call? And you want to make sure that you're findable in that moment when they're frantically looking for, what was that law firm? I can't remember. I'm just going to go to Google and I'll look for them, right? And so you want to make sure that you're there, you're spending, you're visible in that moment of truth. And not just hope that the billboard or the sponsoring the local kids, the local softball team was efficient. I don't think it would be.
Yeah. Is there a general playbook for, I'm gonna call them B2C lawyers, for lawyers that are serving individuals, not businesses? A general playbook for a startup lawyer when they start their practice, and that could be family, criminal, estate planning. Probably not PI, because that's hyper competitive, but in those other areas, non-PI, that are individual related, is there a general playbook that you would advise someone if you just met them in the elevator and like, hey, give me what are the 3 things I need to do, or what should I do to start my firm, that you would tell them to go do?
Yeah. I would say number 1, get really clear on a specific sub-practice area that you are passionate about and that you want to serve, and that you believe there's enough of a market there to justify focusing on that. It's number 1. Number 2 is I would start creating content online. Content is democratized through the internet. Anyone can start up a TikTok channel or a Facebook page or an Instagram page, and there's no real barriers to doing that. And as an attorney who's coming up into, let's say, a practice area, you're going to be much more knowledgeable than the consumer about the areas that they may be, having challenges with that you could help. And so I would highly recommend spending time building up a presence online organically. And then I would say number 3 is you want to invest in your website. Still, websites today, gosh, I mean, they've been around forever, but they are still very valuable pieces of real estate. And people who want to hire you, in most cases, will take a look at your website, and they want to see, number 1, that you are truly an expert in their area, that you could take care of, that you've done these things before, that you're reliable, that that you're overall, that you have a great reputation. And the website is one of the biggest determining factors for whether or not someone will call you. And so by having not just any website, but a beautifully designed website that represents you and your law firm in the right way will really help to make sure that you're maximizing all these other efforts we've been talking about.
Yeah. One of my pet peeves when I look at other firms' websites is the lawyer doesn't have a good picture. It's like they took it on their iPhone and it's terrible. Like, that is your first impression. Make a good one.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
We would, at Scorpion, we really worked hard to develop beautiful websites. And in many cases, especially years ago, the attorneys would not have even thought about, investing in a photo shoot. And we would make that a part of our package, or we'd recommend that because to your point, it makes such a big difference. I mean, at the end of the day, we buy based on gut instinct and we justify with logic. And so we really want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward when it comes to representing our firm, putting it out there. It really is today the law firm's front door.
Yeah. So Corey, when did you first know that you were a leader?
Oh, it's a good question. I did go to this program called the National Outdoor Leadership School, which is kind of like Outward Bound, but it is a program out in Wyoming where you go out and you learn how to be a leader in the wilderness. We get to lead people into like rock climbing excursions and things like that. And I love that because I love the outdoors, but it also got an opportunity to really learn how to take people in the backcountry. At the time, I thought I was going to become an outdoor leader as from a career perspective, but I think I was still a little young. I was in between high school and college, but I think that was one of my biggest kind of ahas. Like, yeah, I'm really drawn towards this idea of helping other people.
Wow. So you're 18 or so, roughly?
Yeah, about 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So real quick lightning round, and then I'd like to close up with how people can find you. So what's your favorite quote?
Sure.
Or something meaningful.
Less is more.
I love that. I actually have that written on a post-it note behind my wall because I'm trying to work on margin this year and not on a lot of things. Favorite marketing book?
My favorite marketing book, the first one comes to mind, is Positioning by Al Ries and Jack Trout. It is a book that was written about maybe 50 years ago by a couple of ad executives, and they really were able to articulate the core of what good positioning is for a business. So that's a great one.
Good book. Is there something in your life that you're really proud of that most people don't know about?
I swam Alcatraz, which it's in it's that famous island that was in San Francisco Bay. There was jail there, and they had like Al Capone and all these places. In any event, you could now take a boat out there and swim back to San Francisco, which was, that was a lot of fun. It was thrilling, scary, exhilarating, all the things you can imagine. That was a great experience.
Did you do that with or without a wetsuit?
I did it with a wetsuit. It is chilly water.
It definitely is.
I think just so that I could look exactly like a seal, that shark infested water.
Come out of the water with your night goggles on and all that. Oh, that's great. So Corey, how could our listeners?
A highlight for sure.
Oh, very good. Very cool. How could our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the best way to find me is through my website. It's CoreyQuinn.com, CoreyQuinn.com. And on there, you can subscribe to, I have a newsletter that goes out 5 days a week. I write it every single day. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love writing. And I talk about things like escaping founder-led sales and finding the right niche and all the things that we had a discussion about today. I talk about these topics. And so that's a great place to get more of my information. You could also follow me on LinkedIn as well.
Very good. Thank you, Corey. You've been just a terrific guest today.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you very much. And thanks again for the opportunity.